I'm going to be honest. I don't hate it, but I acknowledge it's an out there take.
Yeah, you're going to, like, there's a lot of different changes to sports that immediately get rejected because you're just so used to watching it one way.
Yep.
And then you're like, well, I guess, like, maybe this will help because I do think not most fans, close to 50-50 maybe of NBA fans really don't like all the threes. I think, and maybe it's because they watched it in a different way and they like the more of the well-rounded game.
I think Nick Wright makes two really good points there. Number one, all games look the same.
So that I think is his best point. That is different because I disagree with him on people only watch the NBA to see guys fly because when the Splash Brothers first got going, they were must-see TV.
But it was different.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it was threes.
It was threes,
Curry
but it was
and Thompson,
also different. Yeah.
Curry shoot, and that again, not to get everybody down this path, but the reason why Caitlin Clark is so fun to watch is because she basically is kind of like Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. And so the WNBA or women's college basketball hadn't really seen that.
No, it's a lot.
That's why I think she's popular. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's a lot of layups, but her hitting those threes is
taking
different.
Like logo threes, I think it's fun. That's what Steph Curry was doing. That's what like Damian Lillard would do. But now you're like, oh, Trae Young does it. And actually now all these other teams feel like that's the best shot for them on a possession. So that's where I agree with them. People were fine, I think, with threes, but not when 30 teams are doing it.
Okay.
And now that's what you have.
Those guys also are not athletic. You know, like Klay Thompson in the NBA world, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are not absurd athletes. I don't need Anthony. He makes a good point about Anthony Edwards. I don't need Anthony Edwards standing out by the three-point line. I want him attacking the rim. I don't need Ja Morant saying he won't dunk, although, as we said earlier...
Yeah, he can say that.
Ja Morant double clutch reverse dunked on Porzingis' head the day after he said that. And to localize it, I don't need Jaylen Brown launching a million threes. I want Jaylen Brown attacking the rim. And so, you know, if you're telling me Sam Hauser is going to launch threes, fine. If you're telling me Klay Thompson is going to stand out there, you know, no athleticism, and he's a brilliant shooter, fine. I'm not saying there can't be any of those guys in the league. But when everybody, including the best athletes in the sport, play that way, that is a problem. And it doesn't mean it's not the best way to win. This is Terp's point, and he's right. Terp's point is the best way to win in the NBA is the three-point margins. And
seems like that's correct.
That's probably true.
It's playing out that way.
But is it fun to watch? Is three-outcome baseball the best way to win? It might be. Is it fun to watch? And the NBA is a much, much, much younger base, much younger, more youthful viewers than baseball. Baseball has completely aged out. The NBA doesn't have that problem, but I think the watchability problems are similar, and the NBA wants to get in front of that, I would hope.
I do think young fans still love basketball. I know everybody's pointing to the ratings, and that's why a lot of people are also pointing out how it's consumed. I don't know how many young kids, not to sound like the super old guy, but anytime you start a sentence with, I don't know what the kids are doing.
Yeah, but we are getting to be
we're
old-ish.
Yeah, we're definitely oldish. So how many kids today that love basketball sit down and watch it for 2.5 hours versus I'll check the highlights, I'll see what Tatum's doing after the fact.
You're saying, that's what I was just going to add. You're saying even the Celtics, not even just neutral site games, the Celtics.
I think there's probably some of that. Like, hey, maybe you get tickets once a year and you go to the game, great, you're going to go to the game, you're going to love it, you're going to have a blast. But then on the week to week, like how people consume content now is just so different. I mean, they're just so used to seeing reels on Instagram or TikToks or whatever else. So they're like, I'll take that and I'll watch my NBA highlights that way. So they still know the league. They know the players. But I don't know how many are watching it the full go, let alone, hey, you're in a house and you're like making sure your parents say, hey, I need that game on TV for the whole night. Like, no, I'll be on my phone. I'll watch the game a little bit. I'll jump over to this, jump back to it. I think that's impacted it, especially because there are so many games. Maybe that's the main difference between that and the NFL. The NFL is still appointment.
Yep.
I got to watch it
once
Sunday
a week,
at 1.
even though
once a week, even if my team blows.
Even though they're trying to oversaturate it by going to 17 games and expanding the playoffs, and soon it'll be 18, 19, 20 with internationals. Even though they're trying to oversaturate it, it is still very watchable,
like gambling
digestible.
And fantasy, all that stuff. It's just so much easier than like in the NBA. Like you can't bet on every NBA game and survive.
So
like you would be, if you're like me anyway, you'd be way under.
So do you agree the NBA has become, forget the three-point dunk, do you agree the NBA has become too three-point heavy? Not the Celtics necessarily, but the league.
Yeah.
Okay, me too.
Yep.
So how do you fix it? The three-point dunk is interesting because you're not changing anything about the three-point line. You're just emphasizing something else, but that's an out-there plan. Would you move back the three-point line? Would you, I heard Mego talk about this a week or so ago, would you, and I had not heard this as a theory, eliminate the corner three?
Yeah, that one's Tough. I mean, but I'm open to anything. I'll experiment with anything. I think moving it back might eliminate, and maybe not this guy specifically because he's actually turned into a good 3-point shooter, but like when Al Horford's of the world realized, hey, I got to shoot threes to stay in the league, like the big guys are like, I got to all take threes. That really changed. And if you back it up where it's really like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry range, and other guys have to sort of add that, maybe it'll be a little less likely because maybe 38-40% from three goes down, and then now coaches have to say, well, wait a minute. Now these guys are shooting 30% from three.
It's a good point. Should Al Horford be a 3-point shooter? He can do it.
He knows that he has to be to stay in the league.
But I'm saying, but is that best for the sport?
Oh, right. I think that was sort of a turning point. I think with guys like that.
A 5-out offense.
Yeah.
Everybody's standing around the 3-point line. Is that how the game should be played?
Yeah.
Or should these 7-footers, and there are specific exceptions to the rule, but these 7-footers, should they be using a different skill set, or should everybody have the same skill set and all stand around the 3-point line? Like that's a fundamental discussion, and Horford, again, to localize it is a great example.
But that also then speaks to just the freak athletes that are playing the sport now. Yeah. Where like Kevin Durant and Victor Wembanyama and Porzingis, it's like normally a 7-footer wouldn't shoot threes. Like the way we watch basketball, 7-footers stay in the basket. Like, well, they can all dribble like point guards now, so they're going to play the all-around game, and then they're just going to shoot more threes. Plus, it is less wear and tear on the body. You know, the way guys like Shaquille O'Neal got their 30 points versus the way Curry gets his 30 is very different.
This is why Morant said he was going to stop dunking, which, again, he's not doing. But that's what he said because he's going in, attacking the rim, he's hitting the deck hard, and it's less wear and tear on your body to shoot jump shots. It's also less entertaining. So how do you balance that? Is it impacting the ratings?
But it's funny. We had a caller earlier mention how at what point were people like really, really happy with the product? Because like the 90s, for example, I think it might also come in like what age you were, right? It's the way people talk about Saturday Night Live. Like Saturday Night Live, you're like, oh, it sucks. It's like, what was your favorite year? Oh, when you were in 8th grade? Of course it was. But I think when you look at like 90s basketball, like those Knicks Heat games, if you showed somebody those games now,
they were brutal.
It was insane. But those were like the best teams in the league, and they would just hack each other to death.
So here's how
they didn't shoot a lot of threes. But they fouled each other a lot.
Here's how I'd say it: the skill level has never been higher in the sport.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I mean, you can talk about the '80s, and maybe you like the '80s, but the skill level is so much higher now than then. It's not funny. Okay, so I would say it that way, but they didn't have a ratings problem in the 80s. The thing was a ratings juggernaut.
Yeah, they saved it. The decades prior to were the issue.
Even LeBron and Curry, when the Warriors were a dynasty and LeBron was going to the finals every year and going toe-to-toe with Curry, they did not have a ratings problem. They now have a ratings problem. So you can say we'd complain about it, but I'm sure the league felt good about the product. Do you think the league feels good about this product based on where the ratings are going? I don't.
Well, no, they're trying to. I mean, they probably feel pretty good based on the TV contracts. Yeah. I think they feel good about that part of it. But they're in a situation where, and Adam Silver didn't like dismiss it. Like to his credit, he's like, we hear the criticisms of the 3-point shot. Like we're looking into it. I don't know if there's going to be any immediate change, but he has tried to make tweaks. We talked about it earlier. Like he's tried to make sure players aren't sitting out games on prime time to really emphasize those games so people will watch them. You and I disagree on the NBA Cup, but that was clearly with the intent of making regular season games matter more. And
early regular season
games and get people on board there. There is something of a passing of the torch situation, too, where LeBron, Durant, and Curry were the guys for the most part every year for so many years. Now, where are you going? Is Jokic, Doncic, and Tatum ready to take the league to the next level? None of those guys jump out at you as these like huge personalities. Or
so Terp made this point. This is why the league is pushing Edwards.
And they should, and he's really good.
Tatum has no personality. Like none.
No.
And, some of these other is Jokic or Doncic, are they big personalities? No. So maybe that is why they're pushing Anthony Edwards. But you make a good point about we're still getting the superstars of old shoved down our throats. Maybe the younger ones aren't as marketable. In Tatum's case, it's because he has no personality. In
Jokic doesn't want it.
Well,
he's like Mike Trout. He's like, I don't care.
You made a point, too, about the league has become international.
Yeah, a lot of non-American guys at the top of the league.
And whether or not that should be the case, we can debate. Is that right or wrong? It's probably not right. But it just seems like it's harder for fans in the United States to identify with, as you said, a guy from Serbia in Denver. That's not L.A.
Yeah. No, like the two
that's
biggest
not
stars,
New York.
maybe.
That's not Boston.
Yeah, you have a Serbian guy playing in Denver. You have a Greek guy playing in Milwaukee. And again, it's the NBA. Like, you can have stars anywhere. You can. I mean, LeBron was in Cleveland for a long time.
But it works best in big markets.
Yeah, why did Shaq go to L.A.? Like, if Shaq left Orlando for a reason. And, that's sort of telling. So I agree with people texting in, too. Like, you're right. There's more things to watch. It's one of those things because it's not football and it's not, your team plays once a week. They're competing against a million things. So some other years where the NBA had better ratings, there were 4 channels or whatever.
Yeah,
there wasn't as much stuff to watch.
But the NFL rather has been king for 20 years in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Longer than that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a recent dip in their ratings.
Mm-hmm.
And, people have, there's been all kinds of fragmented ways of watching television and consuming media. And this is a more recent drop. So I personally don't buy that. I understand it's all going down, but it feels like the NBA is dropping off more than it should. So I think there are a lot of problems. Like, streaming is an issue that the NBA can't really deal with. Stars aging out and more foreign superstars, those are things they can't really control. But the style of play they can control. And they've altered that in the past. Hand checking, removing it from the game, adding the three-point line way back when. There are ways to tweak that. I mean, they eliminated the dunk, for God's sakes, for a while. So, there's a history of tweaking gameplay, and I think that's something they should look at.